Hello everyone, and welcome back to Snoozing Scientist. Tonight we're going somewhere very few humans have ever truly seen. Somewhere darker than night, quieter than any forest, and older than almost every story our planet can tell. We're going deep beneath the ocean. Before we begin, let me know in the comments where you're listening from tonight. I always love seeing where in the world these quiet science journeys reach. Now, get comfortable, take a slow breath, and imagine the surface of the ocean at sunset. The water is calm. The horizon stretches endlessly. Gentle waves reflect the fading light of the sky. But beneath that peaceful surface lies a world that most people will never experience. The deep ocean. If you begin descending slowly through the water, the first thing you would notice is the light fading. At first, it dims gradually, like walking from a bright afternoon into evening shade. Colors change as you sink deeper. Reds disappear first, absorbed by the water. Then oranges. Then yellows. Soon, the world becomes blue. Then dark blue. And eventually, black. At about 1,000 meters below the surface, sunlight disappears entirely. This region is known as the midnight zone, and it makes up the vast majority of the ocean's depth. Down here, the sun has never shone. Not once. For millions of years, this world has existed in complete darkness. And yet, life thrives here. The deep ocean is the largest habitat on Earth. It covers more than half the surface of the planet and contains an ecosystem so vast that scientists are still discovering new species every year. Strange fish with transparent skin glide slowly through the water. Jellyfish drift like living lanterns. Creatures with enormous eyes scan the darkness for faint flashes of light. Because in the deep sea, light still exists. It just doesn't come from the sun. Many deep ocean creatures produce their own light through a process known as bioluminescence. Tiny chemical reactions inside specialized cells release faint glows of blue or green. Some animals use this light to communicate. Others use it to lure prey closer. One fish, known as the anglerfish, carries a small glowing lure above its mouth like a lantern on a fishing pole. In the darkness of the abyss, curious creatures swim toward the light, only to disappear into the anglerfish's enormous jaws. But predators are not the only strange residents of the deep. Some creatures appear almost delicate, like floating glass sculptures. Transparent shrimp hover in the water. Comb jellies ripple through the darkness with shimmering rainbow reflections. Giant siphonophores stretch longer than a blue whale, made not of a single animal but of thousands of tiny organisms working together as one. The deeper you descend, the more alien the world becomes. At 4,000 meters below the surface, the pressure becomes immense. The weight of the ocean above presses down with a force more than 400 times greater than the pressure at sea level. If you were somehow standing there without protection, that pressure would crush you instantly. Yet the animals that live here feel none of it. Their bodies are built differently. Instead of air-filled cavities like lungs or swim bladders, many deep-sea creatures have soft, flexible tissues filled with fluids that compress very little under pressure. Their skeletons are often delicate or minimal, allowing them to withstand the crushing weight of the water around them. In this world, survival requires patience. Food is rare in the deep ocean. Most energy comes from above, drifting downward in a slow rain of organic material scientists sometimes call the marine snow. Tiny fragments of dead plankton, fish scales, microscopic shells, and organic debris fall constantly from the upper layers of the ocean. For creatures below, this slow snowfall is a vital source of nourishment. Some animals drift quietly through the darkness waiting for it. Others search constantly, moving slowly to conserve precious energy. In a place where meals are unpredictable, efficiency becomes the most important survival strategy. But occasionally, something much larger falls. When a whale dies near the surface, its body sinks slowly toward the seafloor. These events are called whale falls, and they create sudden bursts of life in the deep sea. Entire ecosystems gather around the enormous carcass, feeding for years as the whale's tissues break down. First come the scavengers, sharks, hagfish, and giant isopods. Later, smaller organisms move in, including worms that consume the remaining bones using specialized bacteria. In a place where food is scarce, a single whale can sustain a deep-sea community for decades. And then there are the hydrothermal vents. Far below the ocean's surface, in regions where tectonic plates slowly pull apart, seawater seeps into cracks in the Earth's crust. It is heated by magma deep underground and then bursts back into the ocean in towering black plumes rich with minerals. The water emerging from these vents can reach temperatures hotter than boiling water. And yet, life gathers around them. These ecosystems do not depend on sunlight. Instead, they rely on a process called chemosynthesis, where bacteria convert chemicals like hydrogen sulfide into energy. Tube worms, crabs, and strange vent shrimp form dense colonies around these vents, thriving in a place that once seemed impossible for life. For scientists, hydrothermal vents revealed something remarkable. Life does not always need sunlight. It only needs energy. And that discovery changed how we think about life not just on Earth, but on other worlds as well. Moons like Europa and Enceladus, icy satellites orbiting Jupiter and Saturn, are believed to contain deep oceans beneath their frozen surfaces. If hydrothermal vents exist there, similar ecosystems might be possible in those distant alien seas. The deep ocean, it turns out, may be a preview of life elsewhere in the universe. And still, most of it remains unexplored. Even today, we have mapped the surface of Mars in greater detail than the bottom of our own oceans. Vast stretches of the seafloor remain unknown. Entire mountain ranges, valleys, and trenches lie hidden beneath kilometers of water. The deepest part of the ocean, the Mariana Trench, plunges nearly 11 kilometers down. At its deepest point, a place called Challenger Deep, the pressure exceeds 1,000 times the atmospheric pressure we experience at the surface. And even there, life has been found. Tiny shrimp-like amphipods crawl across the sediment. Strange translucent fish glide slowly through the water. Microorganisms thrive in the mud, adapting to conditions once thought completely inhospitable. The deep ocean reminds us of something extraordinary. Life is incredibly persistent. Given time, it adapts. Given energy, it evolves. And in places where we once assumed nothing could survive, entire ecosystems quietly flourish. Imagine drifting there now, far below the reach of sunlight. Above you, kilometers of water press gently downward. Around you, the darkness stretches endlessly in every direction. Occasionally, a faint flash of blue light flickers in the distance as a small creature signals to another. There is no sound except the slow movement of water. No wind. No waves. Just the quiet, patient world of the deep ocean. A place older than mountains. A place larger than continents. A place where life has learned to exist without sunlight, without warmth, and without the familiar rhythms of day and night. And as scientists continue to explore this hidden realm, they discover something new almost every time they descend. New species. New ecosystems. New ways that life can exist in the most unexpected environments. The deep ocean is not empty. It is simply waiting to be understood. And tonight, as you rest and imagine those silent depths, Remember that most of our planet still lies hidden beneath the waves, a vast, mysterious world that continues to reveal its secrets slowly, patiently, and quietly. And as scientists descend deeper into this silent world, they begin to notice something remarkable about the animals that live here. Many of them look almost unreal. In the deep ocean, bodies evolve in strange and beautiful ways. Without sunlight, colors become meaningless, so many creatures abandon them entirely. Some animals appear ghostly pale, their skin nearly transparent. Others become dark as ink, blending perfectly into the endless black water around them. One of the most fascinating animals drifting through this darkness is the giant squid. For centuries, sailors told stories of enormous tentacled monsters lurking beneath the sea. These stories sounded like myths, exaggerations whispered on wooden ships crossing lonely oceans. But modern science eventually confirmed that giant squid are very real. These animals can grow longer than a school bus, with tentacles stretching more than 10 meters. Their enormous eyes, some of the largest in the entire animal kingdom, are nearly the size of dinner plates. In the deep sea, such large eyes help them detect the faintest traces of light, even the distant glow of another creature moving through the dark. Giant squid spend most of their lives in deep water, drifting slowly and hunting quietly. Because they live so far below the surface, humans rarely encounter them, and even today much of their behavior remains a mystery. Another deep-sea creature moves in a very different way. The Dumbo octopus. Unlike the terrifying name might suggest, this animal is surprisingly gentle in appearance. Small fins extend from either side of its head, resembling tiny ears. As it swims, these fins flap slowly, giving the octopus a floating, almost graceful movement through the water. Dumbo octopuses live deeper than almost any other octopus species on Earth, sometimes more than 4,000 meters below the surface. Down here, they glide slowly above the seafloor, searching for worms, crustaceans, and tiny invertebrates hidden in the mud. Their lives unfold quietly in a place where sunlight has never existed. Even stranger creatures inhabit the abyss. Consider the barreleye fish. At first glance, this small fish looks ordinary, but a closer look reveals something extraordinary. The top of its head is completely transparent, like a glass dome. Inside that dome sit two bright green eyes that can rotate upward, allowing the fish to look directly above itself. In the darkness of the deep ocean, this upward gaze helps the barreleye spot the faint silhouettes of prey drifting above. Imagine swimming through complete darkness with a clear window in your head, scanning the water above for food. Nature, it seems, is endlessly creative when solving the challenges of life in extreme environments. Far below these drifting animals lies another world entirely, the deep seafloor. At depths of 4 or 5 kilometers, the ocean floor becomes an enormous plain known as the abyssal plain. Despite its name, this region is far from empty. The mud here is filled with slow-moving animals, many of which look ancient and unfamiliar. Sea cucumbers crawl gently across the sediment, feeding on organic particles that have settled there. Brittle stars stretch their delicate arms outward like living snowflakes resting on the ocean floor. And giant isopods, distant relatives of tiny pill bugs found in gardens, roam slowly across the seabed, some growing larger than a football. In the deep ocean, evolution sometimes favors size. This phenomenon is known as deep-sea gigantism. Scientists believe that the cold temperatures and slow metabolisms of deep water may allow certain animals to grow much larger than their shallow water relatives. Giant crabs, enormous amphipods, and massive sea spiders patrol the ocean floor, moving patiently through a world where time seems to pass more slowly. But perhaps the most mysterious places in the deep ocean are the trenches. Ocean trenches are long, narrow valleys carved into the seafloor where tectonic plates collide. Some trenches plunge more than 10 kilometers deep, deeper than Mount Everest is tall. Descending into one of these trenches is like entering another planet. The pressure becomes extreme. The temperature hovers just above freezing. And yet, life continues even here. Scientists have discovered small fish living in these trenches, known as snailfish. These animals have soft, gelatinous bodies that allow them to survive under immense pressure. Their bones are delicate, their muscles relaxed, and their bodies adapted perfectly for the crushing environment around them. These fish move slowly, almost gently, through the deep water. Nothing here rushes. Everything moves with patience. And in this slow, quiet world, life has had millions of years to evolve into forms that seem almost impossible. Sometimes the deep ocean even creates living light shows. Large colonies of tiny organisms called dinoflagellates produce flashes of blue light when disturbed. When currents move through certain waters, millions of these microscopic cells glow simultaneously, turning waves into shimmering ribbons of light. In the deep sea, similar chemical reactions allow animals to communicate with flashes, pulses, and slow glows. Some fish produce rhythmic patterns of light to attract mates. Others release clouds of glowing particles to confuse predators, creating brief bursts of brilliance before disappearing again into darkness. Imagine floating through a world where creatures blink like distant stars. A silent galaxy beneath the sea. Even today, the deep ocean remains one of the least explored places on Earth. Each expedition that descends into these depths reveals animals that scientists have never seen before. Some look like delicate glass sculptures. Others resemble drifting ribbons. Some appear almost mechanical, with glowing organs and long antennae sensing the water around them. And every discovery reminds us of something humbling. Our planet still holds mysteries. Vast regions remain unexplored. And beneath the quiet surface of the oceans lies a world so enormous, so strange, and so beautiful that we are only just beginning to understand it. As you imagine drifting slowly through that dark water tonight, surrounded by faint glows and distant creatures, you can picture the deep ocean as it truly is. A vast hidden wilderness. A place where life adapts in extraordinary ways. And a reminder that even on our own planet, there are still entire worlds waiting patiently to be discovered. Far deeper still, where the darkness becomes almost absolute, another kind of creature glides slowly through the water. These animals do not hunt with speed or strength. Instead, they hunt with light. In the deep sea, many predators rely on bioluminescence, the ability to create light through chemical reactions inside their bodies. Tiny molecules react with oxygen, releasing small flashes of blue or green light that shine briefly in the darkness. To animals living far below the surface, these faint lights are impossible to ignore. One of the most famous hunters using this strategy is the anglerfish. Its body is dark and rounded, its mouth wide and filled with thin needle-like teeth. But what makes the anglerfish truly remarkable is the glowing lure that extends from its head. At the end of this thin stalk sits a small organ filled with glowing bacteria. The light flickers softly. In the endless darkness of the deep ocean, it looks almost like a tiny drifting star. Small fish, curious about the glow, swim closer to investigate. And in an instant, the anglerfish strikes. Its jaws open suddenly, and the prey disappears into its enormous mouth. In the deep sea, opportunities to eat are rare, so predators must take advantage of every chance they get. But not all glowing creatures are hunters. Some use light for defense. The deep-sea squid, for example, can release a cloud of glowing particles into the water when threatened. This burst of light distracts predators, allowing the squid to dart away into the darkness while its attacker chases the glowing cloud instead. It is almost like throwing a handful of stars behind you as you escape. Further down, drifting slowly through the abyss, scientists have discovered some of the longest animals ever recorded. These are the siphonophores. At first glance, they may look like delicate, transparent ropes floating in the water. But siphonophores are not single animals. Instead, they are colonies made up of hundreds or even thousands of individual organisms called zooids. Each zooid has its own job. Some capture food. Some digest it. Others help the colony move. Together they function as one enormous living creature. One species of siphonophore discovered in deep water measured more than 40 meters long, longer than a blue whale. Its body stretched through the darkness like a living ribbon, glowing faintly with small pulses of bioluminescent light. Imagine drifting through the ocean and suddenly encountering a glowing chain of life longer than a building. Yet even creatures this large move slowly in the deep ocean. Everything here is patient. Food is scarce, temperatures are cold, and energy must be used carefully. Some deep-sea animals move so slowly that they may go weeks or even months between meals. The giant isopods roaming the ocean floor are a perfect example. These creatures resemble enormous armored pill bugs, with curved shells and multiple legs that help them crawl across the sediment. They can grow larger than 30 centimeters long, making them some of the biggest crustaceans in the deep ocean. But despite their intimidating appearance, they spend most of their lives simply waiting. When a large source of food appears, perhaps a dead fish or a whale full, giant isopods gather quickly and feed until they are completely full. Then they may go months without eating again. Their metabolism slows dramatically, allowing them to survive long periods without food. In the deep ocean, patience is often the key to survival. Not all animals here live on the seafloor. Some drift quietly through the water column, rarely swimming at all. One of the most mysterious of these creatures is the giant larvacean. This small animal builds an enormous mucus structure around its body, sometimes more than a meter wide. The structure acts like a floating filter, trapping tiny particles of food drifting through the water. When the filter becomes clogged, the larvacean abandons it and builds a new one. The discarded filter slowly sinks toward the seafloor, carrying captured nutrients with it. Over time, billions of these discarded structures fall through the ocean like soft underwater parachutes, helping transport food from the surface to the deep sea. Even tiny creatures can shape entire ecosystems. Scientists studying the deep ocean have also discovered animals that may be the slowest moving creatures on Earth. Some sea cucumbers crawl across the seabed at speeds so slow that they move only a few centimeters per hour. To us, this seems almost motionless. But in the quiet world of the deep ocean, there is no need to rush. Days pass slowly. Currents move gently. And life unfolds at its own unhurried pace. Even fish living in the deepest trenches seem to embody this calm rhythm. The deepest fish ever discovered, a species of snailfish, lives nearly 8 kilometers below the surface. Its body is soft and translucent, almost gelatinous, perfectly adapted to the intense pressure of the trench. Unlike the sleek fish of coral reefs or coastal waters, trench fish have very little muscle and delicate skeletons. Strong bodies would not survive here. Instead, these fish float gently above the sediment, moving slowly and conserving energy in a world where resources are limited. Every creature in the deep ocean tells a story of adaptation. Every strange body shape, glowing organ, and unusual behavior represents millions of years of evolution solving the same challenge. How to live in darkness. How to survive with little food. How to exist beneath crushing pressure and freezing temperatures. And yet, despite these challenges, the deep ocean is far from empty. In fact, scientists now believe it may contain more undiscovered species than any other environment on Earth. Every time researchers send remotely operated vehicles into these depths, their cameras capture animals that no one has ever documented before. Some resemble floating ribbons of glass. Others look like delicate flowers blooming in the water. And occasionally, something appears so strange that scientists struggle to even classify it. It is as if an entire hidden world has been quietly evolving beneath the waves for millions of years, waiting patiently for us to notice it. As you imagine drifting deeper into this vast underwater wilderness, the water grows colder and stiller. Above you lies an ocean miles deep. Around you, faint glows appear and disappear as distant creatures move silently through the darkness. There are no cities here. No engines. No human noise. Just the quiet pulse of life in one of the most mysterious places on our planet. The deep ocean is not empty. It is simply quiet. And within that quiet, it holds some of the most extraordinary forms of life Earth has ever created. And as researchers continue to explore the deep ocean, they begin to realize something even more astonishing. The deeper they go, the stranger the world becomes. Far below the drifting jellyfish and slow-moving fish lies a landscape that looks less like the familiar seafloor and more like the surface of another planet. The deep seabed is not smooth and empty as many people once imagined. Instead, it is filled with mountains, valleys, cliffs, and enormous underwater volcanoes. These formations rise silently from the darkness, shaped slowly over millions of years by the movement of Earth's tectonic plates. Some underwater mountains, known as seamounts, can rise several kilometers from the ocean floor. Though hidden beneath the sea, they are among the tallest mountains on Earth. Currents flowing around these massive structures create small pockets of life. Coral colonies grow slowly along their rocky slopes. Deep-sea sponges attach themselves to the stone and filter tiny particles from the water drifting past. These sponges are remarkable organisms. Some of them may live for thousands of years. Unlike fast-growing coral reefs in shallow tropical waters, deep-sea corals grow extremely slowly, sometimes only a few millimeters each year. Their delicate skeletons form intricate branching shapes that resemble frozen trees growing in the dark. In these silent forests of coral, fish gather for shelter, and small crustaceans hide among the branches. Even in the coldest and darkest places of the ocean, ecosystems quietly form wherever life can find stability. But the deep ocean also contains vast plains where almost nothing interrupts the endless sediment. These are the abyssal plains, enormous flat regions that cover huge portions of the seafloor. Fine particles slowly settle here over millions of years, forming layers of soft mud sometimes hundreds of meters thick. If you could stand there, though of course no human ever could without protection, the landscape would stretch out in every direction like an endless desert. Except this desert is alive. Tiny worms burrow through the mud. Microscopic organisms process organic material that falls from above. Small crustaceans wander slowly across the surface. Even in the most quiet and seemingly empty places of the deep ocean, life continues its slow and steady rhythms. But perhaps the most dramatic landscapes in the deep ocean are found along the mid-ocean ridges. These underwater mountain chains stretch across the planet like enormous seams running along the ocean floor. Here, the Earth's crust slowly pulls apart, allowing molten rock from deep within the planet to rise and form new seafloor. This process has been shaping our planet for hundreds of millions of years. In some places along these ridges, the seafloor cracks open, releasing hot fluids from beneath the Earth's crust. These are the hydrothermal vents. Imagine towering chimneys rising from the ocean floor, some taller than a house. From their openings pour clouds of mineral-rich water heated to temperatures far above boiling. The water emerging from these vents carries dissolved metals and chemicals from deep underground. When this superheated water mixes with the cold ocean water around it, the minerals rapidly solidify, forming dark clouds that resemble smoke. Because of this appearance, scientists often call these structures black smokers. Around these vents, life gathers in surprising abundance. Giant tube worms grow in dense clusters, their long white bodies anchored to the rocks while bright red plumes extend into the water. These plumes contain hemoglobin that absorbs chemicals from the vent fluids, feeding bacteria living inside the worms. Those bacteria convert the chemicals into energy, providing food for the tube worms. Crabs, shrimp, and strange blind fish move through these vent communities, forming entire ecosystems that exist without sunlight. It is one of the most extraordinary discoveries in modern biology. Life does not always need the sun. Sometimes it only needs chemistry. These discoveries have changed how scientists think about the possibilities of life beyond Earth. If organisms can survive around hydrothermal vents in our oceans, perhaps similar ecosystems could exist in the hidden oceans of distant moons. Far from our planet, beneath the icy surfaces of worlds like Europa and Enceladus, vast oceans may exist beneath thick layers of ice. If heat from their interiors creates hydrothermal vents there as well, life might find a way to survive. In this way, the deep ocean on Earth may serve as a model for environments across the universe. But despite all these discoveries, we have only explored a tiny fraction of the deep sea. Some estimates suggest that more than 80% of the ocean remains unexplored. Entire ecosystems may exist in regions where no human-made vehicle has ever traveled. Some creatures may live their entire existence without ever encountering light from a camera or the presence of a human observer. They drift quietly through their world, adapting slowly to conditions that have remained stable for millions of years. Occasionally, when scientists lower cameras into these depths, they capture glimpses of animals that seem almost impossible. Fish with enormous jaws and needle-like teeth. Jellyfish with tentacles stretching longer than the vehicles observing them. Strange translucent animals that pulse gently through the water like living lanterns. Each new expedition reminds us that the deep ocean is not a finished map. It is still being discovered. And perhaps that is part of its quiet beauty. Even in an age where satellites orbit the planet and machines explore distant worlds, our own oceans still hold mysteries waiting patiently beneath the waves. Somewhere far below the surface right now, a creature no human has ever seen may be drifting slowly through the darkness. Its faint glow flickering softly. Its life unfolding quietly in the vast and silent depths of the ocean. And as you imagine that immense underwater world tonight, you might picture the planet not just as land and sky, but as a world where most life exists beneath the water. A hidden planet within our planet. A place of darkness, patience, and extraordinary adaptation. A place that reminds us that even here, on Earth, there are still entire worlds waiting quietly to be understood. And yet, even deeper mysteries begin to reveal themselves when scientists look not just at the animals of the deep ocean, but at the strange physical forces that shape their world. The deeper you descend beneath the sea, the heavier the water becomes. Every 10 meters of depth adds another layer of pressure pressing downward. At the surface, the air around us presses gently against our bodies with the weight of one atmosphere. We barely notice it. But at 1,000 meters below the surface, the pressure becomes 100 times greater. At 4,000 meters, it becomes 400 times greater. And at the deepest trenches of the ocean, the pressure can exceed 1,000 atmospheres, enough force to crush steel structures if they are not carefully engineered. Yet the animals living there move as if nothing is unusual. This is because their bodies have evolved without the empty air spaces that humans rely on for breathing. Instead, deep-sea creatures are filled mostly with water and flexible tissues that compress very little under pressure. Their cells are strengthened with special molecules that help stabilize proteins and membranes. These molecules allow life to continue functioning even under the immense weight of kilometers of ocean above them. It is a reminder that life, given enough time, can adapt to almost any condition our planet offers. And sometimes, life in the deep ocean behaves in ways so mysterious that scientists struggled for decades to understand it. One of the most fascinating discoveries is something called the deep scattering layer. For many years, naval sonar operators noticed something strange while scanning the ocean. Their instruments detected what appeared to be a solid layer deep beneath the surface, almost like the ocean floor itself. But the layer moved. During the day it remained deep in the ocean, sometimes hundreds of meters below the surface. But every night, it rose upward. And every morning, it sank again. At first, researchers were confused. Eventually, they realized that the layer was not rock or sediment at all. It was alive. This moving layer was made up of billions upon billions of small organisms, tiny fish, shrimp, squid, and other animals rising together through the water column. Every night, these animals migrate upward toward the surface to feed on plankton in the safer darkness. And every morning, they descend again into deeper water to avoid predators that hunt by sight. This nightly movement is known as the largest migration on Earth. Not whales, not birds, but billions of small animals drifting upward and downward through the ocean every single day. Imagine the quiet darkness of the deep sea slowly filling with life each evening, as countless creatures rise together toward the surface like a slow-moving living tide. Even the food that sustains the deep ocean has its own quiet journey. High above, near the sunlit waters of the surface, tiny organisms called phytoplankton drift through the sea. These microscopic plants capture sunlight and carbon dioxide, producing energy through photosynthesis. They are the foundation of the ocean's food web. When these tiny organisms die, their remains begin a slow descent toward the depths. Along with fragments of shells, microscopic organisms, fish scales, and organic debris, they fall gently through the water like snowflakes. Scientists call this slow fall of particles marine snow. If you could drift quietly in the deep ocean and shine a light around you, you might see thousands of tiny particles floating downward in the darkness, each one carrying nutrients from the surface world above. For many deep-sea creatures, this constant snowfall is their primary source of food. Small animals catch the drifting particles with delicate appendages. Others filter the water slowly, capturing whatever nutrients pass by. Over thousands of years, this falling snow accumulates on the seafloor, forming thick layers of sediment. Within that sediment lie tiny records of Earth's past. Shell fragments from ancient plankton, microscopic fossils from organisms that lived hundreds of thousands of years ago. By studying these sediments, scientists can reconstruct ancient climates and understand how our planet has changed over immense stretches of time. Even the deep ocean currents themselves move slowly through the planet like a quiet breathing system. Cold water near the polar region sinks and begins long journeys through the deep ocean basins. These currents can travel for thousands of kilometers before slowly rising again near distant coastlines. This circulation helps regulate Earth's climate, distributing heat and nutrients throughout the oceans. Without it, the climate of our planet would be dramatically different. But perhaps the most remarkable creatures of the deep ocean are the ones that seem to glow like stars beneath the sea. Bioluminescence is incredibly common in deep water. In fact, scientists estimate that the majority of animals living below 1,000 meters produce light in some way. Sometimes the glow is faint and steady. Other times it pulses in rhythmic flashes. Certain jellyfish drift slowly through the darkness like floating lanterns. Small shrimp release flashes of blue light when startled, creating brief bursts of brightness that vanish almost instantly. Some fish even have rows of tiny light organs along their bodies, forming patterns that allow them to recognize members of their own species in the darkness. In this way, the deep ocean becomes a silent galaxy of moving lights. A universe beneath the waves. If you could float there in the quiet darkness, watching the faint glows appear and fade in the distance, it might feel almost like drifting through space itself. But unlike the emptiness of space, the deep ocean is filled with life. Strange life. Ancient life. Life that has evolved patiently over millions of years to survive in one of the most challenging environments on Earth. And even now, with modern technology and deep-diving robots exploring the ocean floor, scientists are still discovering new creatures every year. New species. New ecosystems. New adaptations that challenge our understanding of how life can exist. Which means that somewhere beneath the ocean tonight, far beyond the reach of sunlight, there are animals drifting through the darkness that no human has ever seen. Their quiet lives unfolding in a world that remains largely unexplored. A hidden wilderness beneath the waves. And as you imagine those silent depths tonight, you might picture the deep ocean as one of the last great frontiers on our planet. Not loud. Not chaotic. But vast, mysterious, and quietly alive. Far out in the open ocean, long before scientists ever placed cameras into the deep, sailors told quiet stories about strange battles happening far below their ships. They spoke of enormous tentacled creatures pulling against powerful whales in the darkness. For many years these stories sounded like myths, the kind of legends that grow during long voyages at sea. But eventually science confirmed that something extraordinary truly does happen in the deep. Sperm whales, the largest toothed predators on Earth, dive into the deep ocean to hunt giant squid. These whales can hold their breath for more than an hour and descend more than 2 kilometers below the surface. Down there, in total darkness, they use powerful bursts of sound to navigate. Their echolocation clicks travel through the water and bounce off objects around them, allowing the whale to build a picture of its surroundings using sound instead of sight. Somewhere in that darkness, a giant squid may be drifting slowly, its long arms stretching outward like ribbons in the water. When the whale approaches, a struggle begins that almost no human has ever witnessed directly. The squid lashes out with powerful tentacles lined with circular suction cups, some of them edged with tiny hooks. The whale counters with its massive jaws and incredible strength. Evidence of these encounters sometimes appears on the skin of sperm whales. When whales return to the surface, scientists occasionally see large circular scars across their heads and bodies, marks left by the powerful suction cups of giant squid. These scars are quiet reminders of dramatic encounters happening far beneath the waves, battles that unfold silently in the dark depths of the ocean. Yet the deep sea is not only a place of predators and prey. It is also a place where entire ecosystems exist in delicate balance. In the deepest trenches of the ocean, where the seafloor plunges down more than 10 kilometers, scientists have discovered communities of life that survive in ways once thought impossible. At these depths, the pressure is so intense that it would crush most animals instantly. But specialized creatures have evolved to live here. Small amphipods, shrimp-like animals, crawl across the sediment. Translucent snailfish drift slowly just above the seafloor. Microbial life thrives within the mud itself, feeding on organic material that has slowly fallen from the waters above. Even in these deepest places, life finds a way. The temperature in the deep ocean is also remarkably cold. In many regions, the water hovers just above freezing, often around 2 to 4 degrees Celsius. Yet deep-sea animals remain active, moving slowly through the water and across the seafloor. To survive these cold temperatures, many deep-sea organisms produce special proteins that keep their cells functioning even when conditions are near freezing. Their metabolism is slower than animals in warmer waters, allowing them to conserve energy and survive long periods with little food. Life in the deep ocean often unfolds at a very different pace from the world near the surface. Some deep-sea fish may live far longer than their shallow-water relatives. Certain deep-sea corals grow so slowly that a single colony might be hundreds or even thousands of years old. The quiet stability of the deep ocean allows these organisms to persist for extraordinary lengths of time. In other places, massive underwater mountains rise quietly from the seafloor. These seamounts can be thousands of meters tall, forming hidden landscapes beneath the waves. Ocean currents flowing over these mountains bring nutrients that attract many species of fish, coral, and other animals. In some cases, these underwater mountains support ecosystems that rival coral reefs in their diversity. Delicate branching corals grow along the slopes, creating complex habitats where small animals hide and larger predators hunt. Because these seamounts are hidden beneath the ocean, many of them remain unexplored. Entire ecosystems may exist there that scientists have never seen. The deep ocean also contains vast fields of strange geological formations known as polymetallic nodules. These small, rounded lumps sit scattered across the seafloor like pebbles in an endless desert. Over millions of years, minerals slowly accumulate around tiny particles, forming these nodules layer by layer. Inside them are valuable metals such as manganese, cobalt, and nickel. Scientists study these nodules not only for their geological significance but also because they form so slowly that some may take millions of years to grow just a few centimeters. In the quiet darkness of the abyss, time itself seems to move differently. Even sound behaves differently in the deep ocean. Certain layers of water allow sound waves to travel enormous distances with very little loss of energy. Because of this, whales can sometimes communicate across entire ocean basins. A low-frequency whale call released into the water may travel hundreds or even thousands of kilometers before fading away. To the whales, the ocean becomes a vast acoustic landscape filled with distant voices. Scientists listening with underwater microphones sometimes hear these sounds echoing across the deep sea, slow, haunting calls drifting through the water like songs carried across the night. And still, much of the deep ocean remains unknown. Each new expedition into these depths reveals animals that scientists have never seen before. Cameras capture strange gelatinous creatures drifting slowly through the water. Unusual fish with enormous eyes or transparent bodies glide past the lens. Sometimes researchers encounter species so unfamiliar that they must spend years studying them before understanding where they belong in the tree of life. In many ways, the deep ocean is still one of the greatest frontiers of science. It is a place where discovery happens quietly, one expedition at a time. Somewhere beneath the ocean right now, a creature unknown to science may be drifting slowly through the darkness. Its body glowing faintly. Its life unfolding in a place untouched by sunlight for millions of years. And as you imagine this vast hidden world tonight, you might picture the deep ocean not as an empty darkness, but as a quiet universe of life beneath the waves. A world where evolution has crafted extraordinary creatures. A world where ancient ecosystems continue to thrive. And a world that still holds countless mysteries waiting patiently to be discovered. As we slowly drift away from the deepest parts of the ocean, imagine the darkness beginning to soften just a little. Far above, thousands of meters away, the surface of the sea moves gently beneath the sky. But down here, the deep ocean remains calm and still, untouched by wind or storms. The water moves slowly, almost imperceptibly, like a quiet breath that has been continuing for millions of years. Creatures continue their silent journeys through the darkness. A jellyfish pulses softly, its body glowing faintly like a drifting lantern. A small fish glides past, disappearing almost immediately into the endless black water. Somewhere far below, a sea cucumber slowly crosses the ocean floor, leaving delicate patterns in the soft sediment. Nothing here rushes. The deep ocean teaches patience. Life moves slowly, carefully, conserving energy in a world where every movement matters. Some animals may go days or even weeks without encountering another living creature. Yet the ocean is never truly empty. It is simply vast, and its inhabitants are scattered quietly throughout its enormous depths. And above this silent world, the rest of the planet continues its busy rhythm. Ships cross the surface of the ocean. Storms sweep across distant waters. Cities glow along the coastlines. But far below it all, the deep sea remains unchanged. A hidden wilderness beneath the waves, older than human history, older than mountains, older even than many of the species that live within it. It is easy to forget how much of our planet lies beneath the water. Nearly 3/4 of Earth's surface is covered by ocean, and most of that ocean is deep. In many ways, the deep sea is the largest habitat on our planet, a place where life has evolved in quiet isolation for millions of years. And still, we have explored only a small fraction of it. There are trenches we have never visited. Seamounts that have never been mapped. Creatures that have never been seen by human eyes. Somewhere tonight, far beneath the waves, an animal may be drifting through the darkness that science has not yet discovered. Its soft glow flickering gently as it moves through the silent water. The deep ocean keeps its secrets well. Perhaps that is part of its beauty. It reminds us that our world is still full of mysteries. Even on a planet we have lived on for thousands of years, there are still places so remote and so quiet that they remain largely untouched. And so as you rest and imagine those immense underwater landscapes tonight, picture the slow rhythm of the deep sea continuing far below the surface. The drifting lights of bioluminescent creatures. The quiet snowfall of organic particles sinking toward the seafloor. The slow movements of animals perfectly adapted to their dark world. A silent universe beneath the ocean. Calm. Ancient. And endlessly fascinating. And somewhere down there, in the quiet darkness of the abyss, life continues exactly as it has for millions of years, slowly, patiently, and peacefully, beneath the waves.